Okay, well, welcome to our panel 4 today, and we have a great teams today, obviously here, and I will let everyone do introductions. And first of all, my name is Raymond. I'm calling in from Hong Kong, China. My role, I am the founder and CEO of Alphaslot, which is a company based in Macau, Hong Kong. I've been spending the past 15 years helping the Macau government developing the first standard with GLI together on the slot machines and things like this. And also my experience back in Las Vegas, also with my partner in Las Vegas, doing setting up slot machines, developing the slot machine platform. This is my background. Obviously, I'm a tech guy. That's why I am hosting this panel today, which is we're going to talk about technologies. Well, right now, why don't I just let everyone introduce themselves? Who want to start first? Anyone? Maybe Danko, you want to start first?
Yes,
introducing?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the attendance on this panel. My name is Danko Vuković. I'm Managing Director of Elbet from Serbia. We at Elbet are virtual game specialists with our key markets being in Africa and Europe. And we have a broad portfolio of our games, anything ranging from the nominal games to the virtual sports. And I hope that I can share some insights from our world today on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danko. And next, Bonjour. Thank you. Oh, you're on mute, please. Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, everything is okay now. So hello to all. It's my pleasure to be part of this year's Gaming Forum. I am Bojan, Sovilj, CEO and founder of Cloudwalker. Cloudwalker is a Serbian company based in Belgrade, and we offer a wide range of analytic, big data, and cloud adoption and cloud migration services to gambling sector. We are focused on AWS, on Amazon. We are also part of Amazon Partner Network. Me personally, I'm part of AWS Community Builders Program, where together with 500 engineers from all around the world, we are trying to essentially spread the word about cloud, and that's it.
Thank you very much. And we have the next guest on this panel, Joseph.
Pozdrav svima, hvala na pozivu. That's all I know in Serbian and a couple of other words which I shouldn't say. Thank you for having me here. Basically, I am a partner at WH Partners, which is a law firm in Malta that specializes in tech law, mostly gaming. Through my career, I was also Chief Regulatory Officer at the Gaming Authority in Malta. I was also on the board of the International Association of Gaming Regulators. Right now, I specialize mostly in providing advice to gaming companies, gambling companies, esports, blockchain, fintech. So anything related to technology and innovation is my field.
Great. We're looking forward to hear from you in the next like 30 something minutes. So we have next one is, sorry, I have a little bit cold today. So, but don't worry, it's not COVID-19. So, and it cannot be transmitted to you anyway. So if you have hard time hearing me, then please excuse me. So we have the next panel in our guest in the panel, Mino. Mino, why don't you unmute and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Miloš. I'm a founder and chief operating officer of a company called Blinking. Our main concern is helping gaming industry to self-regulate, to enable their users to play in a regulatory manner. And also we are trying to, and being successful at it, I might add, we are trying to maintain a positive user experience and to even use regulatory compliant acts as a positive tool in order to enable users to onboard easily, to go through really easy actions, and also we enable gaming operators the ability to track and communicate better with their users. And also I would like to say hi to everyone, and it's my pleasure to participate in this panel.
Thank you, and say hi back to you too. And we have next one is Nikola. Very nice black jobs you have over there. Can you introduce yourself?
We took this forum very seriously. So greetings to all panelists. It's a pleasure to be here and also to complete audience watching us now. I might extend a bit on the introduction. So I've started my first introduction into the gaming industry was playing a first poker game. It was particularly Texas Hold'em back in 2007. And already in 2008. Sorry, can you mute from the gaming business? Okay, it looks like they stayed online. I think someone should just text them to get offline. So in 2008, I set up my first company as I realized that there was a big demand for poker equipment and professional equipment. So that's where I started getting involved already 2009, 2010. I've started and I involved myself into the online gaming and online poker through online poker. And that's exactly the time when I founded the Serbian Poker Federation, which today has over 10,000 members. I've run multiple poker rooms at a time, also being involved in a good affiliate network. And in 2013, I had an opportunity to set up an operational center for a large Italian betting company to set it up in Serbia. We started just with a few traders, but it expanded into covering up the full ops service, leading to marketing, analytics, etc. That was the time when I realized how important technology is in the business, and that to be successful in gaming, the core lays in understanding technologies and applying technologies in the nowadays industry. So,
thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Thank you very much. Very impressive the entrepreneurial career that you have. Maybe we can talk a lot more about that in the next 30 minutes. So. Next one in our panel, Nevis, maybe you're next. Hello. Hello. No. Okay.
Raymond.
Nevis is not part of. Okay. So maybe we have Euros. Yes, sorry.
They are both supporting.
Yes, supporting us. Okay, so we have the last but not least, Ross is our panelist. Or no, he's like support too. Okay.
I think he's also support.
Also support. We have a lot of support tonight over here, so making sure that we are going very smoothly over here. So thank you very much for the introductions over here. And as we know, this panel is about technologies, how the new technology is going to impact the gaming world, and also sharing our experience in this sense. So like blockchain technology, AI technology, big data, and also like we talk about cloud technologies as well. So I would like to start the conversations with like, so what technologies you guys have experience with and you think is like going to impact our gaming world in the next 2 or 3 years at the most? Who would like to start with this?
Well, I can say just short, for me, the biggest changer is the cloud. I have like 20 years of experience in on-prem, let's say, data centers. And I like to compare cloud as, you know, I already told it, but I like to compare cloud as, you know, being a programming language against assembler. You know, like what programming language was to assembler, that cloud was to, you know, to technology in essence. Of course, there are so many other technologies and we will speak about them, but for me, cloud is the first.
Sorry, can you talk a little bit more about your experience using the cloud technologies or how you're seeing it?
Well, we started with Amazon technologies. You know, it's much more elastic because in essence, when you need to most of our focus is big data, you know, so big data systems are distributed. So you need, let's say, for example, 10 servers for a stuff. And in classic on-prem settings, you must buy those servers, then install them, then install operating systems on them, etc., etc. Now you can take 10 servers in a few clicks, which is essentially, you know, by using cloud, you don't have that capex expenses as company has while acquiring technologies. So that's it.
Well,
sure, go ahead.
If I may add onto the cloud topic, I think the cloud has brought a significant change to the way how technology companies in gaming operate, in terms of that it has taken out the infrastructure out of the equation. It has enabled us to be much more flexible. It has enabled us to deploy much easier. However, at a cost. The cost of the cloud in general it comes as a premium as opposed to the own infrastructure. But on the other hand, it enables us the flexibility and enables us to have capacities that we otherwise would not have with our own infrastructure in general. So and now with more of the hardware and more of even the software services like the databases and all the other infrastructural things that run in the background being basically on the SaaS model, everything is shifting slowly to the cloud, and I think that is definitely the future. Everything will shift to the cloud eventually, with even being some regulatory requirements of having the servers in the States. Now with cloud companies providing that kind of regulatory support as well, with having the hosted zones in the said countries and the said gaming regulatory zones. So it even becomes possible in that way. So I believe we will see more cloud in the forthcoming years in the gaming industry.
Okay. Before we jump further, I have a question. I mean, put the regulations aside. You talk about the price. I mean, you see is interesting. It's like you see the actually putting things on cloud is more expensive than the traditional way having your server. Is it correct? Am I understand you correctly?
Yes, of course. I mean, definitely. If you have now this is all with a lot of ifs. If you have a infrastructure that is not changing, that is static, then having your own infrastructure is definitely cheaper, I would say, or maybe several orders of magnitude less than being on a cloud. But if you need some capacities that are or filling the peak demand, then literally having your infrastructure is not an option. You have to go to cloud, and cloud is the only option in that way. So cloud gives you the reliability, cloud gives you the flexibility that you need, but it comes as a price.
Okay. Anyone have other experience that would like to talk about?
I would like to add to the topic, because we made a bold move a year and a half ago when we migrated from on-prem to Microsoft Azure. It was a very challenging process to move without more than 2 hours of downtime. But what we gained at the time of a massive growth, where we experienced the growth in more than 100% week on week, and faced with millions of bets in a day, actually what cloud has brought to us is the scalability. And this was very important for us. To achieve that scalability on on-prem, it was a huge capex, but most of all, it was very hard to maintain. Being in cloud also allows us to scale at the time when we need to scale up the system, especially during the peaks, in particular gaming industry, and the peaks expected are usually around Saturday, around 4 p.m. So keeping an on-prem system for just 1 hour or 3 hours of peak time on Saturday was something that we wanted to avoid as well. So I wouldn't say it comes at a cost. If you do have a static and a stable environment which doesn't require a lot of scalability, then on-prem probably is a good choice. But I think very soon many companies will start utilizing the cloud services, as we did, because we're very pleased with that move.
Any tips of which cloud service to choose from? Anyone?
For us, it was natural to go on Microsoft Azure because all our technologies are backed by Microsoft. We're on .NET Core technologies, so we just wanted to stay within the same group. I think Bojan can give us more insight on the AWS.
I see. Bonjour, you have it mute. I know you're talking.
Yeah. Well, I don't have experience with Azure. I believe that Azure is a perfect product, perfect cloud, but I would suggest AWS, And I think that, AWS likes to see cloud adoption in 3 phases. All 3 phases are really hard. And the first phase is rehosting. So many companies in the sector are essentially doing rehosting, basically taking all those servers from on-prem to AWS and then basically making copy of the infrastructure on cloud, and that is rehosting. But after that, you have much more complicated parts, which is replatforming, which is second. When you use AWS, different kind of services, you cannot find them on-prem. And last is refactor, when you use latest formalisms like serverless computing, etc., etc. So I would choose AWS, but I also believe that Azure is also great.
Okay. Since you mentioned Azure, I just keep a comment. It's like Ali Cow, by Alibaba is big over here. But however, it is like a 50-50 between Ali Cow and AWS. But people have a privacy concern on the Ali Cow in general. I'm not saying that what they are doing. I'm not going to comment on that. But there is a general concern about that too. But Ali Cow do have a better access, better performance over in Asia, especially within China. Sorry. Danko, you want to add?
Well, in regards to the choice of the cloud, I think that there are 3 major global providers. It's AWS, it's Microsoft, and Google. Basically, yes, they are local providers like Alibaba in China. Probably some regions have their own local cloud providers, but basically 3 names, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are ruling the cloud right now. And pricing wise, it is almost identical throughout all the 3 providers. You will find the same instances, the same pricing almost anywhere. What has Bojan mentioned is the Amazon is definitely leader in terms of the sheer number of services and sheer things that are ported to the cloud, which I find I'm kind of conflicted about it because yes, it does make the software development and deployment much easier. It makes life easier for developers. Time to hit the market is much shorter with these kind of services. For example, if you need to use Apache Kafka, it's 2 clicks on a mouse with Amazon, and you have the instance launched, and then you don't have to worry about it. But on the other hand, like a lot of these serverless functions like Lambda and stuff like that, it also causes the vendor lock-in. So if you rely too much on these kind of services, you are pretty much locked to Amazon, and you cannot easily migrate to Google or to Microsoft or to some other cloud provider.
I see.
So I think that we should be very cautious and very wary of how much we lock ourselves into one provider. We at least at Elbet try to keep ourselves as free as possible of constraints, so that maybe perhaps at some event tomorrow we can migrate our services or part of our services to some other cloud provider. We, by the way, use AWS as our main provider. So yeah, that is maybe some caution that I would like to mention.
Thank you very much. Before we go on, I Mino, you go next. But Danko, would you mind? Your mic is cracking on your shirt, I think. Danko. Yeah. So maybe you move your mic a little bit away from your shirt, and it's cracking. And so everyone, please speak a little bit slower. I know we are very excited about what we're talking about, but maybe a little bit slower so we can have everyone clear. So Mino, please go ahead. And
I wanted to also put my coin in this topic. It's quite an interesting topic. Things are definitely going to cloud, and this is not a trend anymore. This is more of an industry standard. It's becoming more and more of an industry standard. Something that my company does practically give me some experience about the fact how you actually, when you go to the cloud, you cannot really just disregard the fact that all the situation and all the hardware is in someone else's hands. As you know, there's a lot of legislative acts that are trying to regulate this industry, and some of them are not directly targeting it, but you have legislative acts such as GDPR that are talking about how you treat user data, where you store them, and stuff like that. So one of the challenges we had to face was how you actually are going to make changes to systems, or how you're going to design systems so that you can actually use cloud as a technology, but you still give enough, should I say, trust to users and to all the people in the chain of this business, in order to maintain a good relationship in the future and to self-regulate. And this is something you, Raymond, mentioned already. There's a lack of trust in some of the cloud providers, which is sort of a difficult topic, since you then don't have to decide only based on your costs and operating stuff regarding your business. You need to think about reputation as well. And my personal opinion is that when you impose those kind of legislative acts on gaming businesses, then they lose focus out of their own business, out of something they're trying to do, which is provide fun and provide, let's say, some for people to spend pleasant spare time. And then they have to focus on things like recording people information, confirming their identity, checking whether they are not doing any money laundering or something like that, which is quite difficult. And I believe that technology that can help in this case scenario is cloud, one of them, but also a lot of technologies that are popping up in the latest, such as AI, artificial intelligence. Also, my company deals with blockchain as well. Bojan also is working in machine learning and data analytics and stuff like that, which is something that is, I believe, very important since with such massive growth of this industry. And I must say, when we talk about technology, this industry is really doing well. People are scaling, they are growing, and all of our tech providers need to help the industry to go on a straight path to success. So to keep growing and to focus on their business. And this is why it's important to use all the technology that can support this growth by practically making it easy on people not to do things manually, to avoid heavy procedures, and to enable people to be online and to onboard online. This is something that I'm really passionate about, and not to practically go ahead and try to fight the regulations, but to actually welcome it and use it in your benefit, so that you can actually improve the user's experience and practically use the legislative acts as a flag, as a mechanism to pull it into the next century.
I see. Very great. I mean, great that you talk about other technologies too, AI, because I don't want this panel to be captured by cloud technologies. People think that we're only talking about cloud. So since you mentioned about AI and also blockchain, maybe we go to Joseph maybe this time. So Joseph, I know you have a very extensive technical background. So can you talk a little bit about your experience on like the other technologies like we just mentioned about, like AI, and how do you see the future? And maybe talk a little bit about the challenge that you are seeing. Joseph, you need to unmute. Thank you.
Sure.
And speak slowly and speak slowly so we can have the translations go smoother. Thank you.
Sure. So just to add on to what Miloš was saying, I totally agree with him that cloud now is an industry standard. I don't see a way a gaming company can actually operate without using the cloud because of scalability, as Nikola said earlier. So I believe that cloud is something that is standard now. So what we're looking at now also as innovative technologies is blockchain and AI particularly. With respect to blockchain, there are certain benefits that blockchain can bring to gaming in terms of transparency, in terms of speed of payment processing, in terms of immutability and security. So all of these advantages can be brought by blockchain, but then there are a number of setbacks with blockchain that right now are rendering blockchain not so attractive to gaming operators. to be fair, I believe that we're waiting for the first 2 or 3 blockchain gaming companies to become successful. And then we will see a lot of activity in that space from the larger players within the gaming industry. But certainly blockchain is a space to watch, because there are certain benefits that can be brought by blockchain to the gaming industry that that are quite significant. Then, of course, if we look at AI, in terms of AI, AI is already being used a lot in the background more than on the front of gaming companies. And particularly, we're seeing AI being used for marketing purposes, AI being used particularly for responsible gaming purposes, and AI being used for money laundering monitoring. Many operators nowadays are using some sort of AI software in order to assist them deal with the magnitude of the data they have, in order to monitor it, both for responsible gaming as well as for AML purposes. And I believe that within the next few years, AI will be a standard technology being used by most e-commerce operators, but particularly gaming operators, due to the nature of the business, as a standard, just like cloud is now becoming the standard for the gaming industry.
Mm-hmm. Great. Anyone see, like, or we talk about AI, big data, but blockchain and cloud? I mean, we know that it's applied into the regulations and responsible gaming. Anyone have any experience? See, actually, it's how it's changing the player play, or changing the way we offer products to the players in the player side or the customer side? Anyone would like to comment on that?
Yes, well, in terms of AI is making quite, let's say, its entry just to the gaming market. Of course, we in gaming are heavily regulated market, so it's not very easy to change the procedures and change the way how it functions. So that is why AI is right now mostly in the marketing part and KYC part of the gaming. However, we are seeing the AI utilizations in the game designs themselves. Of course, where the regulations allow that. For example, when you have the regulators will require you that the game will have a certain RTP, but volatility of that game is completely up to the operator to decide and to design. Now, instead of the fixed mathematical models determining the volatility of the game, we now have AIs, or at least we tried and we play a little bit with AI to see if the AI will yield to the better results in terms of the gaming gross revenues with a certain game. So the AI actually analyzes the player patterns, analyzes the play, analyzes the player's history, and tries to make up the volatility on the fly in order to just extract some more of the gaming revenue. And of course, the current applications of the AI, which we see in the productions today, are in the bonusing softwares, because bonusing is often not related to the mathematics, not related to the RTPs and volatility, so it's not regulated at all. So, for example, getting the free bets can depend on some AI analytics. And I think as the future progresses, AI has a really huge potentials, especially for the online services that can have access to all these big clusters with AI and machine learnings on them, because a lot of data has to be processed instantly. So we will not see this, for example, in the slot industry where the slot machines and the hardware is offline. But for the online, I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, AI is going to become a standard method of doing work in the game design.
I see. Very good. I know, Nikola, you have experience with the poker games and also online games. Maybe, Nikola, you can talk a little bit more about your visions on how technology is changing the way we offer products to the players.
Sure. Thanks for that. I wouldn't talk about AI now as we're based in a market that has required us to continuously upgrade our technology, but sometimes the innovation in technology is not the key to success. Sometimes the innovational approach towards technology can bring success. What I mean by that is that when we launched in Nigeria, we realized that the lack of telecommunication infrastructure and that outdated mobile devices which were based on Symbian, as you all remember 12, 13 years ago, has required us to reverse back our technology for 10 years. What I mean by that, 25% of the market is using, in Nigeria particularly, is using Opera 4.1. That's a standard from 2009, 2010. And we had to achieve that. We had to respond to that. So it was challenging to go in and ask the guys now, okay, let's go backwards. Let's revert back to something that you've never done. And all that to achieve just 2 megabytes of bandwidth consumption once the website is open. So that's something that is always challenging, and the technology from that aspect, as I said, doesn't always refer to being always the most innovative. Of course, having the highly volatile activities and millions of bets and millions of transactions in our system, it required us always to always seek an opportunity, be innovative, but also change the architecture and the way of how we think. So to improve technology, you also need to improve and scale the teams. You need to improve the mentality. And if you can't upscale your teams, you need to bring in someone that has seen it, someone from the outside space to get his hands involved and to support that.
Bonjo, you would like to add?
Well, just my experience is that, you know, big data as a service is a part of AI in the sense that it is infrastructure for AI. And I've seen in our clients so many applied machine learning. I would say machine learning rather than AI, because for me, AI is much, you know, much sophisticated technology. But in terms of segmentation, risk, you even have predefined bets companies. We saw the companies on IC that are selling AI services, which will help your customer to have predefined bet when he log into your site, you know. So as everybody said here already, I think AI will have much impact. And also point to Nikola, it's very hard to find the people and to retain a people with enough skills to help you on that path, you know.
Yeah.
That is really a challenge.
Yes, it is. Since we are on this topic that you and Nikola also brought up about scaling, like building teams in especially on the technology side. Anyone has any tips for the people here, like how we can scale the team and, you know, what we can do about that? Any solutions? Quiet. It's like a big challenge.
Yeah, first of all, you need to start reading whatever you can, and you need to start thinking about, do you have the right people that can keep pace with a very high growth that sometimes you become, how to say, a hostage of your own success. So you can't give up, you just need to upscale. So people either are ready to follow that, or you need to make changes. Making changes in terms of bringing really the people that have seen it and that can support you with it. I remember when we started, the first downtime we had, we couldn't process more than 40 bets in an instance. Understanding that very soon, just a month ahead, we will oversee that. We had to do something. So we started changing the architecture, we started changing the design. And that's where we brought in some new technologies that allow our quicker communication, better transactional modules. And I mean, 2 years after today, we can accept more than 1,500 bets in a second. So obviously, it's a very challenging process, but if I can suggest to someone to read something that's a bit scaling and a high growth handbook, very good literature. So whoever's facing this, you should have a read on that.
I see. I'm a little bit fortunate over here in Hong Kong and Macau because we have about 20 universities surrounding within 1 hour drive. We have about 20 universities. So when I build up the team and the company, we usually start with the student and then hiring them and then like nutrition them for a couple of years until they graduate. And then so we're making sure that we have a pool of talents. That's what I'm doing over here. Maybe something that you can learn. But however, I mean, there is also a big topic about, oh, you need scaling and outsourcing. Do you think outsourcing is a solution? Because outsourcing can be a lot of challenge. I see Nikola, you already shaking your head, right? And see who has an experience or opinions to talk about outsourcing.
Well, I don't know whether you can hear me properly. I just changed my mic. But in regards to outsourcing, in general, in scaling, there are a couple of things that people need to have in mind. First thing is how to scale technically. And the big problem there is you need to scale people along with the technology. And one of the best things I can always offer as an advice, I've worked on many big systems during my career, and I'm also a university professor, and I work with a lot of students. First thing in regards to how you're going to enable your team to grow is exactly what Raymond just said. You need to have a talent pool even before you're trying to employ them and to add them as a team. Yes. And also you need a culture in your company that is based on knowledge exchange. So you need pair programming, you need information, you need constant communication. This is something this COVID crisis is threatening a bit right now because everyone is trying to work remotely. And on the other hand, one of the things that can always help you scale technologically is to always be ahead of the curve. And that means that once you're done doing a feature or improving your technology, you immediately need to re-engineer. So first of all, you need to promote a culture in your own organization that people are able to release from what they've just built and think about what's going to be the next turning point in your system and how it's going to look in 10 days, in 20 days, in maybe a month or so. That's, in my opinion, in my experience, it's really difficult to build that kind of a culture because people, they simply get in love with the product, they get attached to what they just built, and you, after some time, you need to say, okay, we are deleting this and we're doing it in a different manner. And one of the important things in this industry is that before, let's say, maybe 10 or more years back, this wasn't an IT industry, essentially. It was an industry of providing pleasure to people and playing games and stuff. And now practically all of these companies, and Nikola and Danko, they can definitely confirm this, they became tech companies and they are heavily oriented on technology and they have great talent and some of the best engineers are working there. And this is something that's relatively new. In a sense, you would expect that the biggest technology talent is going to be in some other industries, but essentially, since this is practically an industry that has a rake and has interest that is practically comparable to financial systems such as Visa, MasterCard, and other companies, you need people that are able to follow that kind of interest and that kind of growth and practically provide and facilitate it. And this is why it's really important to build a good quality culture within your organization. This is simply my opinion.
Yeah. I also tend to look for people when I looking for students or junior engineers. I tend to look for people not good in the skills, but good in learning, have the willingness to learn things too. Because I learned it when I was, before I went to Vegas to start my gaming career. I actually worked for Morgan Stanley, which they actually taught me a lot. It's like they gave us a lot of resources to learn new stuff, and you know, we have budgets allocated for engineer like myself at that times to learn new things. And then promotion actually was based on how many we took outside Morgan Stanley and things. So this is also something that maybe other people can look into, to, as Mino just said, is like creating the culture. Is maybe set aside the money too for people to do training, and also using the external training as a scoring point to promote people as well. This is my own opinion. Anyone would like to add on? I know, Bonjour, you just unmute your mic. I know you want to say something.
Oh, well, yes, I just wanted to, but Miloš already told it. I just wanted to say that culture eats strategy for a breakfast, as they say, you know, and I think that the biggest thing is to make a culture for engineers, as we are technology companies, let's say technology. You know, we like to say, if we here in Cloudwalker, and it's basically AWS, if you have a team that is bigger than one pizza for lunch, then you need 2 more teams, you know.
Yes.
And going back to your question about outsource, I think that the technology future belongs to small teams that are good in communication with other. Usually for our clients, we are surrounded by many teams for our clients and other teams which are also doing different kind of services. So I think that future will be small teams that could cooperate together.
Can you talk a little bit more? It's interesting. Can you talk a little bit more? What do you mean by small team, and why small team work and how it works? Can you talk a little bit more?
Well, if you have like 5 engineers dedicated to a small function, and that function should be good enough, you know, you are enough with those 5 guys. You must, that is my approach, you must take a system, then break a system into smaller functions and try to dedicate the smaller functions to professionals. In that sense, I would not like to work with a team of 70 engineers, 100 engineers. I would like to work with 10 teams, let's say, of 7 engineers, and I know which function they do. So that's a context I try to, you know, to think about technology scaling when we speak about member of a teams and skills, etc., etc.
Anyone want to add on some comments?
Speaking of culture and just the human resource in IT. In our company, historically, we were kind of clustered into, you know, platform team, sportsbook team, front-end team. But some time ago, we realized that we need to be product-oriented. So what we've done, we built the teams around the product. So inside one product team, exactly what Bojan has mentioned, in terms of slice of pizza, we tend not to have more than 8 people in a team. So you got the virtuals team, you got the sports betting team, or a particular feature that needs to build within the sportsbook. You would include the DevOps engineer, you would include the platform, you would include the front-end team. So they would take true ownership of building the product up, and they would really take pride in the actual product that they built. When you cluster them and when they work on particular parts and components of the code, it's harder to maintain the proper motivation. Back to the outsource, as I was nagging a bit, we had some good and some not that good experience with the outsource, let's say, consultants and people that came in to support us. At the end, we had to do it ourselves. At the end, you have an architect that is inside your company that has built something for the past few years. Him understanding the pressure and the stress and the need for us to upscale was more than a good motivation for us to build something amazing. You have a system admin, a junior system admin that turns into a cloud engineer in a year and a half with a lot of learning, with a lot of passion, and a lot of motivation. So to run a successful tech company, you really need to have amazing people around, and you need to maintain a proper culture.
Danko, you have something to add?
Yes, I mean, on this subject, on outsourcing, this again all depends on the company. Sometimes, if you need a certain task, a certain specific item done, for example, every 3 months or every 6 months, it makes no sense to have people or a team just for that purpose. For example, you need music design that once in every 6 months, then you do outsource it. But it's very important, and it's key to find a reliable outsourcing company. If you find a reliable outsourcing company, that's the same as you work with your own team. I assume that most of the bad outsourcing experience is actually not because of the outsourcing. It's because you have found the unreliable partners. But of course, the key items, and if you are outsourcing something that you are doing on a daily basis, and that makes no sense. That has to be an internal thing. But in terms of the costs optimization, I do strongly believe that outsourcing certain stuff that are periodical and not every day just makes perfect sense.
I would like to jump to Joseph. I mean, do you have any personal experience how you manage your tech team too? As we know, you're very tech. So can you share with us your experience? Oh, you're on mute.
Well, we're a law firm, so as such, we don't do any development as such ourselves. However, obviously, we have to deal with advising operators in adopting new technology, in educating regulators on new technology, of course, in order to make them understand it and accept it, embrace it. Obviously, our role is also to understand the technology. So you can't really advise on technology if you don't understand it yourself. So even though we're advising from a legal perspective, rather, we still need to understand the technology ourselves. We need to understand the games ourselves as well, because there's no way you can advise on it otherwise. So what we actually focus on is on understanding the product, understanding it thoroughly, and then as the need arises, we see how it fits within a regulatory framework and advise the client accordingly, or what tweaks might need to be done in order to make it fit within a regulatory framework. Then when new technologies come along, like blockchain, for example, which was obviously a big change, then in those cases, we had to go to the regulators and make a case and explain to them and educate them on this technology, the advantages it brings. And generally, when you talk to a regulator, you have to give the advantages that it will bring to the players, to the users, the advantages it brings to the operator as well, and the advantages it brings to the regulator as well. So if you manage to have something that brings advantages to the three players, to the three parties within this triangle, then automatically you have a good shot at convincing the regulator. Regulation is a necessary evil, I call it. I'm a former regulator, so one day when I say this, it will come to haunt me, probably, but in truth, it is a necessary evil. Without regulation, I'm pretty sure we'll have much more innovation. That said, many people, when you say it's a necessary evil, focus on the word evil. In truth, we have to focus on the word necessary, and that means that it is required, but we also have to make sure that regulation is in relation to what is really necessary. There shouldn't be regulation just for the sake of regulation. And unfortunately, especially in Europe, we're seeing quite a lot of initiatives nowadays where we're regulating everything and we're not taking a proper risk-based approach on what is really necessary. And obviously, something very important, especially for operators to discuss with regulators and to lobby with legislators, is to make sure that regulatory frameworks are drafted in a way that are as technology neutral as possible, because the more technology neutral the framework is, the less regulation will stifle innovation from a technology point of view. And also, in terms of gaming, one should stress on game neutrality, because unfortunately, one thing that we see is also very little innovation in terms of the games being provided by operators. So we see a lot of innovation in Asia, for example, where we're seeing a lot of mix of skill games and games of chance. but we're seeing very, very little innovation in Europe or in the Western world in general. And I believe that one of the reasons why we're seeing this little innovation is because our regulatory frameworks sometimes actually limit the possibilities of introducing new types of games. So I believe that something very crucial in regulation is technology neutrality and game neutrality.
Very great. I mean, there's a reason I point to Joseph, because in this final 10 minutes that we have, we would like to focus on the regulations, to talk about the regulation, which is a big topic, regulations and technologies. So Joseph has given us an overview and very good point. Anyone would like to add on the regulation side? Yes, Mino?
Yeah, if this is actually a great intro from Joseph. Thanks, Joseph. And I would like to also direct a few questions around the panel. And specifically, Joseph said that currently there's a trend in Europe, and that's not only a trend. I believe that happens decades back, that we tend to regulate things rather than to see what's going to happen and then try to react on it. It's a similar thing when we build things like parks and stuff like that. Like there's a saying that like in Japan, they first build an empty park and then they put people and let them walk on it, and then they tread a trail, and then they pour concrete on it and create trails like that. And this is something that is not common to Europe. We like to predict what's going to happen and how we're going to act accordingly. And this is something that also affects business that I'm into as well. So I would like to ask Joseph, and this topic concerns Danko and Nikola definitely. They are usually advising gaming providers and gaming regulators into instating new technology that should overcome some regulatory needs, but also they are sometimes advising them to introduce new technology that is not really that regulated and that falls within the gray zone, and then you need opinions of several different entities. I would like to hear how are actually gaming provider, whether they are open to those kind of challenges, whether they want to take risks or they just like to follow the industry and to practically repeat what the others have done. I know that those two people that are sitting with us are not of that sort. With Nikola, I know personally that he's an innovator, and of Danko, I've heard from other sources and from using their platform as well. I know that they're innovators in their business and they're not afraid to take risks. But what is your take on things, Joseph? What's the situation with your clients? Do you actually see reluctance in pushing technology forward when there is not a really good regulatory framework to work with?
Well, yes, you'll have the push from a certain section of the team, from the gaming operator, the team from the commercial side, from the marketing side, from the developer side, but then you'll have the compliance and legal team that would pull the brakes. And that is obviously very unfortunate. And yes, it is affecting innovation. Now, let's be clear. There are some cases where it's important to limit technological innovation if it could harm the player. Let's be clear. But I believe that one of the problems why regulators do not accept certain technology, why they not embrace, the right terminology is embrace certain technology, is because they don't understand it. So in Malta, we're very fortunate that we have a relatively young regulator in terms of average age. So most people in the authority are quite young, and they tend to be very tech savvy. And generally, it's quite easy to explain certain innovative products and innovative technologies to them. However, when it comes to certain regulators, certain other regulators, it becomes much tougher to explain certain technological innovations. So that is where I believe we're getting stuck. Also, I think the approach is wrong. I believe we have a wrong approach when we go to regulators. First of all, the industry is quite fragmented. So we rarely have a situation where the industry goes with one voice. We have EGBA in Europe, which is quite vociferous and quite well organized. But there is very little else available for the industry to go as one voice. We have another organization in Malta which is called IGEN, which is quite active as well, but that's basically it. So we're not seeing enough momentum from the industry to try to go and actively try to educate legislators, the European Parliament, the Commission, the European Commission, local legislators on new technologies and on how to properly regulate gaming. And I believe that unless the industry starts doing that, it's going to be very tough to convince regulators, because regulators are generally very conservative, because they are afraid that once they let something in, it will, if something goes wrong, the blame will fall on them, and it could lead to big harms for the players. So we need to assure them, even when we go to talk to them, we need to give them the pros and the cons, and we have so that we show them that we are being realistic here, but we should also, with the cons, offer them the solutions, the mitigating factors, how to mitigate those cons.
Great, thank you. Danko, go ahead.
Yes, well, in general, the first point as Miloš raised was the experience with operators and who basically do operators wish to take a risk with really non-regulated or not completely regulated products. So that really depends on the operator. We have mentioned previously in this panel to an essence that fast companies will eat the slow companies and will overtake them. So it's not the size of the company, it's the speed what matters. So we have examples everywhere, even here in Serbia, in Southeastern Europe, or all over the world, where the companies who adapt, who take risks, and who go forward are basically growing and eating up the market share, while these bigger ones that are less active and willing to take on less risks are staying in the same place, and thus, because they are not growing, by the sheer fact that they are not growing, it means that they are losing their market share. I do not expect regulators to be more proactive and to act in advance. I consider them to be more reactive. Basically, the Joseph mentioned that yes, regulators do have a lot to lose if they create a problem, and their problems are not easy to change. Once one law is passed, it's very hard to retract it. It's very hard to change it. That is why they have to be very conservative. We had a case here in Serbia with the virtual games, with what we do here for years on end. The gaming law that has changed recently before that was almost 20 years old. So the virtuals were not, for example, recognized, and as operators who were willing to take them were operating in a certain gray market where it is not specifically allowed, but it's not specifically forbidden. So they had some kind of a risk, but also that enabled them to grow and maybe to become leaders over certain operators and grow the market segments. And in the end, the regulators have recognized that, recognized the potential source of income for the country in itself, and have regulated that part. So I would always assume that regulators would be more of a reactive part than a proactive part. But what we can do and what we do as a producer of these games and as somebody that basically puts these kind of technologies on the market, we always try to work with these regulators and educate them because it is in our best interest. And of course, we try to help them as much as possible. But then again, you have some regulations like in Malta, where everybody is young, where Malta is basically, their business model is to attract a lot of operators to their countries. And then you have regulators like the local state regulators in Southeast Europe, where they really don't have to battle for the business, so they can allow themselves to be a little bit behind of the market.
We come to the final 1 to 2 minutes. So I would like to take these opportunities to also listen to Bojan and Nikola on these topics too, since you two haven't give your comment on that. Like maybe we start with Bojan, on regulations. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, it's like 10 times during this panel to, you know, usually me, 3-2 to Joseph. Well, I'm not expert for regulations, you know, and I think a lot of depends from compliance managers in companies, and regulations are quite different from market to market, you know. So that's my opinion about it. I'm just, you know, not an expert for regulations.
Okay. Nikola, you would like to give your final comment?
I would first of all agree completely with what both Joseph and Danko said as well, Bojan. I will just try to correlate a bit between the technology, the product, and the regulation. So we've taken, I would say, a pragmatic approach. We built a great compliance team, but a team that is knowledgeable about our product and our technology. So the fact that we operate in multiple markets in Africa, and Africa sometimes we will take and consider as a one market. It's not. It's actually very complex to go to any other state. And the compliance team, they need to be aware of the technology and what you can build. So they need to liaise with the product teams and with the tech teams in order to find the most suitable and affordable way and the quickest way to enter the particular market. So we don't try to over-upset ourselves with the regulation. We have a team that is worrying about that, but then they're the ones that have a great analytical skills for understanding the regulations, but they need to understand what we can build around. So I would say that that's something that is our business model, and how we achieve to be very quick into go-to-market.
Okay. So Joseph, since you start this topic, I let you be the one to give your final comments before we end this panel.
I made sure to unmute myself, so I give the victory to Bojan. Yes, well, there's nothing much to add. Ultimately, I believe that three things. First, we need to really have as much as possible one voice. Secondly, we need to engage with regulators and legislators, because again, sometimes the regulators get it, but in some countries, legislators don't consult much with the regulators. So I don't know the situation in Serbia, to be fair, and in many other countries in Southeast Europe, but I believe that there is that problem across the board. In general, regulators are experts in the field, so they might understand it better, but that is not always the case with legislators. So it's also important to lobby legislators within the legal parameters of how it is allowed within the within that particular jurisdiction, but it has to be done. And the third point is also when the approach. So you have to understand the regulator. You have to understand where the regulator comes from. So what issues the regulator has, how a regulator thinks, how a regulator, what are the fears of regulators, and you need to address those. And that's how you convince the regulator, because you put the mind of the regulator at rest. So once you put the mind of the regulator at rest, or the legislator at rest, then you have an easier task to convince them.
Thank you very much. Thank you again for everyone over here. Very a challenging topic, since we talk about technologies in gaming because of the regulations and everything. But everyone do give people a good insight of what technologies is available right now and what the challenge is. And thank you again. We are running out of time. I mean, we actually run over times already, but I just want to say final thank yous, and thank you for the organizers to give us these opportunities to have the discussions over here. And I think your everybody profile is already in the internet, and I'm sure that if anyone listening to us is interested to find out more about the technologies or regulations or anything about what we talk about, feel free to approach us, and our LinkedIn and profile are on the website. So looking forward to see everyone again in the next event. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice